It is actually Jamel's birthday today.
Okay, I have to say happy birthday to him.
It's actually Jamel's birthday today.
I got confirmation.
Okay.
We're live to all
Happy
three.
birthday to him.
We're live to all three places, and the recording has started.
Okay, thank you. Welcome everyone to the council's caucus and work session prior to our February 24th, 2022 meeting. I will just get right into the agenda. Is Council President Ellis here? I don't see him. Because then I have to usually go back and. Oh, there we go. Perfect. How you doing, Mr. President?
Doing well. Good evening.
Okay, Mr. Adams.
I was just going to ask Ethan, can you try to send me the agenda again? I can't open it up on my tablet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. So just getting right. You okay? Exasperated there, Mr. President?
Yeah, just ran in from an event, so
Yeah, a lot of traveling.
yeah.
Okay, so just getting into the agenda for the meeting. For meeting minutes, I'll be offering the February 7th, 2022 meeting minutes. It's from our first meeting in February. Under local laws introduced, local law B by Mr. Anani of 2022. That'll be a referral to planning. Okay. Next on local laws C of 2022 by council members Johnson, Anani, Hoey, with the support of Council President Ellis. That will be going to the Public Safety Committee. Referred. Okay, that's it for local laws. On to ordinances introduced. We've got by Mr. 95-2222. That'll be a referral to the Planning Committee. Okay. Actually, who did I? Next is 6/22/22 local law. It'll be a referral to planning. So the sponsor will be Mr. Ballery. I wrote it down. Okay, rest of the ordinances on the agenda are held. Next.
I'm sorry, President Pro Tem. Did you say that 6/22?
I said Ballery.
Ballery.
Excuse me, Ballery Law.
So is it, because last time it was supposed to be, is it going to the planning committee or the law committee?
Law.
Okay.
I got one scratched out. Looks like Mr. Adams.
Hi. I know Alfredo's not on the call, it looks like, but can anyone give a little bit more clarification to that ordinance?
Do you have it in front of you, Mr. Williams?
I do. Oh.
So,
Okay.
Sorry, Councilmember Adams, you were referring to 6/22/22?
Yes, correct.
Yep, so that has to do with the permit parking system that exists throughout the city. There are 3 different zones. Your ward has a tiny little slice of Zone C.
Yep.
So as the law exists right now, people without permits to park in those zones are limited to doing so for a period of 2 hours. There's sort of a loophole, I guess you could call it, whereby under the letter of the law, if you park somewhere for 2 hours and then you move your car to somewhere else in the zone, you know, there's an argument to be made that you can legally do that and park there for another 2 hours and just keep that cycle going all day. So this legislation is designed to prevent people from doing that, basically, just moving their car around in the zone all day, because that sort of defeats the purpose of having the permit parking zones at all. So, and this is being made at request of the Albany Parking Authority.
So pretty much what they're trying to say is, or essentially they're just trying to get everyone to get parking permits in order to prevent that.
Well, parking permits are only available to residents.
Residents, yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, I suppose, it would behoove residents to get a parking permit if they live in those zones. But I think the real purpose of the legislation is to prevent people who aren't residents, for example, state workers who live outside the city of Albany or something, from taking up parking spaces in those parking zones from actual residents.
Right, and that's a larger problem in some areas more than others. I would imagine that your area doesn't see too many state workers over there, so but some of the areas are really plagued by the issue of cars just jockeying and moving a few spaces, and it takes up the parking for the residents. So
I'm right here by the plaza, a block over, and so. We have parking issues, but, this isn't the type of issues that we're having or concerned when it comes to the, parking and parking enforcement over here. So I guess, does this legislation, would that impact over here or just that particular zone?
No, this legislation would impact all three
zones.
All three zones.
the thing is, it's just being introduced and referred. So the conversation that we're having right now, we can have in the committee and work through through that.
Understood.
Because I mean, go ahead, Jenny.
Yeah, we'll definitely in depth discuss this, but I would also recommend talking with Alfredo a bit about it, to just if it might be that it might not be a great idea for it to impact all of these zones. If your experience in your ward is that might not be a helpful thing. I would just touch base with Alfredo, but we absolutely will have a full discussion in the committee meetings. And I actually, I wanted to wait until today to send out the email so I have enough time, but I will be scheduling a committee meeting for this and local law A.
Gotcha.
To go over, hopefully in a couple of weeks.
Thank you for that.
Okay. All right, rest of the ordinances are held. On to resolutions introduced. 152222 by Ms. Romero regarding the traffic signals. We'll be voting on that. Next, 162222 by Ms. Frederick. Again, the last at caucus we talked through this, and Mr. Williams, we wanted to pass this right sooner rather than later.
So
I have it down for pass for a vote. Excuse me.
Yeah, if the council is comfortable doing so. I talked to the assessor, Trey Kingston. He didn't have an exact number available, but he said the number of, he was pretty sure the number of seniors exempt under this exemption last year was in the 900 range. Depending on the year, it can fluctuate anywhere from about 900 to 1100.
Okay.
So.
All right. Yeah, and again,
yes, for those numbers.
okay, we'll be voting in again. It's existing seniors with exemptions that we'll be voting on. Ms. Keegan?
Yeah, I just wanted to go back really quick to Gabriella's legislation on the beg buttons. from my understanding, because it's a resolution, it's non-binding. So we're asking traffic safety to do a policy, but we're not putting them in a position where it's necessary, it's fiscally required. The only reason why I expressed concern is because rerouting traffic lights is a much more complicated endeavor than one might expect. And so I'd want, if it was a binding enforcement on traffic engineering, I definitely want to hear from leadership at traffic engineering about the process for that and the potential fiscal ramifications prior to voting, if that makes any sense to you all. So I just wanted to make sure and clarify for myself that that's what we're doing tonight.
No, we don't have anyone from traffic engineering here tonight. Are members comfortable with moving forward? I mean, there's no, go ahead, Mr.
Yeah,
Romero.
could I jump in, Kelly? Council President Kimber. So that is a big concern that I had too, Megan, and I did meet with traffic engineering already. And as you kind of mentioned, it's a non-binding piece of legislation, but it's still it's a statement. It's a suggestion. It's a strongly worded suggestion. My next step, and I'm hoping, and I can talk about this in the meeting or when we have a discussion period, or can just bring it up now, that I'm hoping to gather a meeting with people that are interested in talking more about pedestrian actuation and kind of like what the next step would be to prioritize walkability in our city. So as you know, resolution's non-binding, it is a statement, but the next step would be to do something that's more binding that would kind of change the traffic enforcement and infrastructure in our city. But I'd love to kind of join you into that meeting because it sounds like you have an interest.
Yeah, no, I definitely do. And it's not a matter of not supporting what we are trying to accomplish in any way, shape, or form. It's more of a matter of if we're voting on something that potentially has ramifications that we haven't thought about,
Right.
I would not be comfortable until I had the full breadth of the picture, if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, no, it does. I would love to have Bill Trudeau in and some other kind of community advocates. You can come to a meeting. You're definitely going to hear from them in the public comment period. But I was hoping to have like an off council meeting, kind of just with as many advocates and experts as we can before we introduce a piece of legislation. So when we vote on it, or even now, I just love, let me know if you guys are interested to be a part of that conversation. But there's no financial ramifications of a resolution because it's non-binding.
Right, and I spoke with Bill Trudeau also, and it's my understanding that they include this equipment in the upgrades and when they change stuff. But it'd be good to know that it's being done with regularity. All the signals will get switched out, and that this will become the new norm. And from my conversation with Mr. Trudeau, that's what it seemed like they were leaning towards. But every little bit helps, and having these discussions and talking through some of this stuff is important.
If I could add one more thing, Kelly, just really quickly.
Yep.
I was also, I think I might have misworded the issue in my own promotional materials and just in general in talking to people, that it's not that we are looking to remove the button itself. It's that we're actually looking to enhance pedestrian safety by requiring a pedestrian signal to cross at every cycle. So that does have ramifications for potential cycle signals and like kind of how long intersections will take for vehicles, definitely. But it's not that I want to remove the button, because the button has very wonderful implications for people that are differently abled, whether it's the haptic feedback or the auditory beeps that you're hearing. All of that's really wonderful. We don't want to remove the button. We just want to emphasize pedestrian accessibility by having that walk signal at every cycle or at every opportunity. So thank you for giving me. It's not just a removal. So
Thank you, Mr. Romero. Mr. Williams?
Yeah, just since Councilmember Keegan asked the question, I just wanted to provide a a broader view of what resolutions can and can't accomplish really quickly. So, a resolution is the way for the council to announce its intent with regard to something. The council can approve officers such as the mayor or other officers to do certain things. It can approve budget transfers through a resolution. So in that sense, resolutions can have a fiscal impact. So, a resolution's effectiveness isn't necessarily tied to whether it has any fiscal impact or not, but a resolution can't really effectuate any policy change or any change to a law. That has to be done through a local law or an ordinance.
And that's really more so what I meant by the fiscal impact for this one, was that we're asking, but we're not requiring. And therefore, anything that the traffic engineering would have to do that would result in a cost to the city is not included in this legislation, because that's sort of the piece that I think we need to flesh out. That's all.
Thank you. Ms. Amer?
Yeah, just quickly to clarify. So, Kelly, you said that you spoke to traffic engineering and they are supportive of this
Yes.
initiative.
Yeah, and he said they were already doing, when they were doing upgrades and making changes, they were already adding the additions and changing things as they went along.
So where's the resistance coming from? I guess that's my question, because I've seen a robust campaign and I'm just wondering I'm just sort of like what Megan said. I'm interested to know what the opposition would be to making pedestrian signals more accessible to everybody.
I don't think there is.
In the spirit of transparency, I have had some opposition, and I'm not sure if now's the right time to discuss this or if we should get into this when we have an ordinance or at our or at this roundtable chat that we're going to have. But I can go into it if we want to right now. But I think it might probably be better to discuss that when we have the experts around. But Mr. Kimbrough, if you think that that's the right thing to do, I can go into it.
If you want,
and that's fine. I'll say if there's another venue to discuss it, but I know that there's going to be a lot of public comment on it. There's certainly, so I'm just wondering what the issue is.
Sure. Okay.
so just go ahead.
So you would like me to go into it? Okay. So there is a little bit of pushback from disability advocates who may be I would respectfully suggest that there might be a misunderstanding of what the actual intent is when I say that I want to remove the concept of a colloquially beg button. What I want to remove is the request to cross the street rather than prioritizing pedestrian right of way. So disability advocates say that the signals themselves are helpful for people that are differently abled, that it is extremely helpful to have both the auditory signal and the haptic feedback on the button. But again, the resolution in the future ordinance wouldn't be removing that. It would be actually keeping those components, but prioritizing the ability to cross the street. Some other criticism that I did actually hear from Bill Trudeau himself, and I don't mean to, it's wonderful, Kelly, maybe we had different conversations. I had a long 2-hour chat with him. And I think that the future issues, and I really would love for Bill Trudeau to really explain it in his own words, but the potential issue would come up with prioritizing pedestrian signals and pedestrian right of way at every single cycle. Right now at some lights you can wait for a really long extended period of time. We want that period to be shorter and more frequent. The wait time, we want more opportunities to cross the street. And when you prioritize that, then it affects the ability of other cars to be moving quicker, I guess. And so that becomes a problem when you're disrupting the scheduling of the traffic light cycle. But frankly, I think we should be prioritizing pedestrians anyways. So I think that is that's just something as we move forward towards a more walkable city that unfortunately some of the cycles for vehicles might have to be a little bit longer. But I would love for Bill to kind of come in and talk to us more about that. And like I said, I'd love to have a group discussion with everyone about some of this. So I did personally receive some correspondence that was in opposition, but because it's not an ordinance, I imagine that people haven't taken to the public comment period just yet to voice their opposition. But I'm excited for that opportunity to talk about that more.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. Okay, where was I? Did Miss Fredericks, we were at 162222 that was going to be voted on. Okay, that was by Miss Frederick, Finance. On to 172222 by Mr. Anani Flynn, Hoey, and Miss Romero. That was the resolution for the Crash Victim Safety Act, and that was intro and hold. You wanted to hold it until further notice. So that's an intro and hold. Next, also by Mr. Nani, resolution 182222, the resolution supporting universal child care. We'll be voting on that also. And that would be it for agenda items. So just moving on to a few things. Oh, okay, Ms. Frederick.
I'm just going to go back to 152221R if I can. I just want to be super clear.
Yep.
So are we moving forward with voting on the resolution tonight and then later doing the ordinance? Okay.
Oh, so that's what I'd like to do, and that's the way we planned. And I don't, unless members are in opposition, it's a resolution. The plan was to vote on it. Yeah. Any opposition to? No. Okay. All right. Okay. So just a few things we got going on. One, we're working on staff. We got a couple of applications in for the Research Council. Two, actually, only two in the next week or coming weeks. We'll be interviewing those two persons for that position. We also have a number of applications for the junior policy analyst. Most were out of the area, so we're weeding through that so we can do the interviews for that also, because we really got to get some staff on board to help us out here. Also, what I got here, there was a question, discussion around where we're at with local law T. That was the one that removed the Corporation Council and added the President Pro Temp to the E&A process. There was a bit of confusion around what we would do or what we needed to do because the mayor didn't sign the document. So what we ended up doing is basically after 30 days, it's supposed to go in effect. And so we've moved ahead with forwarding it and delivering it to the Secretary of State. And we didn't have any issue with that. So that was today. And so basically it's not basically, it goes in effect when it's filed with the Secretary of State, and it has been. So I have to figure out, there's an E&A meeting tomorrow, which I know Council President Ellis will be at, and I plan on jumping into that meeting also until we can it's council, it's President Pro Temp or designee. My logical person to attend would be the Chair of Finance. That's what I'm thinking about. but we can work on that down the line. So that's that. We also are.
Oh, I just want to be clear. You're coming to meetings, so then if they don't recognize you, then I'm going to abstain for any votes to move anything forward. I believe that's what the council would want. Correct? If they do not recognize you're sitting there as a presence, I will be abstaining from any vote.
Okay.
Yes, from my perspective.
Just letting council members know.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Ms. Frederick?
Just responding to what you said, I think that makes sense. I don't think I could join tomorrow, but if the plan is for you to join the first one and then I jump in after the fact, that totally works.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's logically, you're the finance chair, so it makes the most sense. And then if there are issues, then moving forward, then I can fill in when you're not available, but we can work that out amongst ourselves. So that's that. And then also we did the interviews in council operations for the reapportionment commission on the 17th and on the 22nd. Got a good group of folks, wide, diverse group, in terms of area of the city, professions. So I'm really excited about it. We actually we've made our selection. We're trying to work through one or two more things before we put it out there. I've been working with Ms. Gillespie because we have to get mapping software, and there's some other behind the scenes stuff that needs to be set up before the commission can move forward, and we're working to take care of that. And I think at this point, that might be all I have. And anyone have any questions or comments? Mr. Hoey.
Yeah, we had talked about the doing lunchtime committee meetings. And I know there was some people wanted to have a discussion on it. I don't know if this is a good time or not, but I know we did have one on February 10th. Everybody told me they felt it was successful. So I just don't know whether I could do another one like that, and again, once the virtual goes away, and I think it's March 16th, I don't know if we'll be able to do it like that again, but it was something I wanted to bring up if possible.
Yeah, we got 2 minutes, but yeah, I mean, again, that afternoon meeting, it did. It was a well run. The meeting went well, but again, my concern, and it's not a knock, is that it is the time. It's the same issue we ran into with the IDA and CRC. It's just folks being able to make it, even if it's virtual, being able to jump into the meeting. Again, I mean, I suppose you could have the meeting when you want to with proper notice. I mean, so if you wanted to do it again, can you do it? I mean, yeah. Should you? I mean, that's a whole different story. Ms. Keegan.
I just wanted to note to you guys, in case you missed it, that since we're voting on universal childcare and in support of universal childcare this evening, that United Way is doing a day of action on March 8th, which also happens to be International Women's Day. And that is going to involve direct lobbying and support for access to affordable quality childcare at the New York State Capitol. So if anybody is interested, please contact me and I will be happy to share the event information with you all. That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Keegan. Mr. Johnson, real quick, and then we got to get into.
Well, my statement was in response to the public safety meetings being held in the daytime, and I could just see that being a conflict. The moment that something happens that's near and dear to people's interests, and not being able to leave work to come to a meeting that's going to be in the daytime. So, when I first heard about that, that was the first thought that I had, that I could see that being problematic down the road when it's a big issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We'll definitely have to have further discussion on that, Mr. Hoey. With that,
Mr. Hoey will
Mr.
hear from a lot of people on that issue, but.
Right. Okay, Mr. President, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. Welcome to our Common Council meeting, February 24th. Can the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. President, if all members can unmute themselves so that they're able to respond to their names. Adams.
Unmute yourself, Mr. Adams.
Here.
There you go.
Anani.
Present.
Valorant. Clark.
Here.
Farrell.
Here.
Flynn.
Here.
Frederick.
Here.
Hoey.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Keegan.
Here.
Kimbrough.
Here.
Love. Robinson. Romero.
Here.
Zamer.
Here.
12 members present, 3
Uh,
absent.
Alfredo just joined.
13 members present if Alfredo is with us. 2 members absent.
Thank you. And we'll.
I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. Can you pull up the flag so we can say the Pledge of Allegiance and then have a moment of silence? Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now we'll move to our portion of our public comment period. Any individual wishing to speak tonight will have 5 minutes to speak on any topic they choose to. At the 4-minute mark, I will let any speaker know that you have 1 minute remaining. During public comment period, council members are not allowed to address anything said to a public comment. If council members choose to do so, they will do so at a later portion of the agenda. With that being said, Madam Clerk, do we have anybody in the queue for first speaker besides the written comments?
We have several members. The first one is Richard Conti.
Mr. Conti. We can't hear you. I can see you. There you
I'm
go.
there. You hear me?
Yes, we can. Go.
Thank you. I'm not used to being on this side of the table necessarily. But thank you, Mr. President. I got my statement. My name is Richard Conti, and I currently reside at 151 Chestnut Street in the city of Albany. And I'm here tonight to speak in support of Resolution 15.22.22R by Councilmember Romero in relation to pedestrian activated crossing signals, also known as bag buttons. The issue before you is simple. It's the inequity within which we recognize and prioritize motorist rights at the expense of pedestrian rights and safety. Under the current configuration of traffic signals, red and green lights automatically cycle through to regulate the efficient flow of motor vehicle traffic. However, pedestrian crossing signals often require that pedestrians activate a crossing signal by pushing a button, which doesn't automatically activate a safe crossing signal, but rather places the crossing signal in a cycle to be activated at some point. In effect, the pedestrian has to ask, some would say beg, for the opportunity to wait for a safe crossing signal, hence the term beg buttons. The inequity in this system is clear and particularly problematic for densely populated walkable neighborhoods where pedestrian traffic is heaviest. Often these buttons are not located near the pedestrian crossing or may be obscured from easy sight, and the need to wait even when a vehicle traffic signal may be with you breeds disregard for pedestrian traffic signals. Being a walker myself, my own experience with beg buttons is confusing. I often observe traffic signal changes after I push a button, but when I would logically expect a pedestrian crossing signal to activate, I see a whole new cycling of traffic signals and preferential treatment for motor vehicles. This boggles the mind. This resolution doesn't eliminate existing beg buttons, but does express the sense of the Common Council that moving forward with installation of new traffic signals or upgrades of existing traffic signals, that pedestrian crossing signals be included in the routine cycle of signals that regulate vehicle and pedestrian traffic. I just want to note in 2013, the council did adopt a safe streets ordinance for transit-oriented projects with guidelines designed to, quote, improve the access and mobility for all users of streets in the community by improving safety through reducing conflict and encouraging non-motorized transportation and transit, unquote. In the longer term, the council should also look at that ordinance to incorporate the pedestrian safety equity provisions of this resolution. And while I'm here, I did intend to also speak on the status of local law T. I heard the discussion in caucus because I've been concerned about correct status of local law T, which relates to designating the council president pro tem a member of the board of ENA. And I was going to urge that, in terms of my interpretation of the charter and the municipal home rule law, that that local law is in effect, and I'm glad to hear tonight that the council is moving forward and filing it with the Secretary of State to actually formalize the implementation of that local law. And noting that there is an ENA meeting tomorrow, I was going to again urge that the president pro tem attend that meeting as a member. I saw that the agenda that was put out earlier today still included the Corp Council as a member of ENA. I would suggest that if the president pro tem is not recognized as a member, that action further than just abstaining by the council president, but that then is not a valid ENA meeting if a member of that board is not recognized as a member and allowed to participate. And that, I think, would call into question any actions that ENA would take should a meeting in which the president pro tem is denied his seat takes place. But I'm glad that the council is moving forward on that. It was an important reform. I hope everything works out tomorrow in that regard. And I would say in terms of the designee, being the sponsor is always kind of like, either the president pro tem, the logical designee could be the finance chair. And I think that makes sense. That's what the budget director often sits in on those meetings as a designee of the mayor. Because it is a board dealing with budget issues, budget-related issues, but that designee can also be floating depending on availability. So if the finance chair isn't always available, that can happen as well. And I just want to note also that, as has always been the case, if the president is absent and cannot be in a meeting, automatically the president pro tem would fill in for the president. So that doesn't remove the president pro tem's ability to fill in for the president, and you can appoint a designee. But I am glad that I wanted to talk about that tonight, and I'm glad you're moving forward on that because it's really important as far as the council representation on that board. And I think it's important that you move forward and assert the fact that that law has been adopted and should be filed that way. Okay, so thank you again, and for the opportunity for speaking with you tonight. Take care.
Thank you, Mr. Conti. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Jeff Crumpton.
Scrumpton, can you state your name and address for the record? Thank you, sir. You have 5 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, my name is Jeff Crumpton, and I am the president of the Hudson Park Neighborhood Association, and I'm at 367 Hamilton Street here in Albany. All right. As I said, I am the president of the Hudson Park Neighborhood Association. I'm also a board member for the Washington Park Conservancy. But more importantly, as a resident of Hamilton Street, I'm a really heavy user of the sidewalks and crosswalks in our city. I've already provided written comments to the Common Council in advance of this evening, so I only wanted to emphasize a few points. First, that complete streets are, quote, designed and operated to prioritize safety, comfort, access to destinations for all people who use the street, especially people who have experienced systemic underinvestment or whose needs have not been met through a traditional transportation approach, including older adults, people living with a disability, people who cannot afford or do not have access to a vehicle, Black, Native, Hispanic, and Latinx communities. Complete streets make it easy to cross the street, walk to jobs, shops, schools, bicycle to work, and more actively walk with assistive devices. They also allow buses to run on time and make it safe for people to walk or more actively move from transportation systems, unquote. The city of Albany correctly has prioritized a complete streets approach to the study, planning, design, and implementation of critical pedestrian and traffic infrastructure. We hear from our residents here in Hudson Park, and I personally feel that this is in total alignment with making our city safer and a more desirable place to live. When my family moved to Albany over 10 years ago, our decision to live in this part of the city was really driven by access. Access to parks, access to other parts of the city, access to other local businesses. So whether it's Lark Street or Delaware Avenue, Central, Western, New Scotland, or anywhere downtown, my family does this by walking, and we encounter these challenging intersections on a daily basis. The recently completed Lark Street Improvement Study shows increased incidents of pedestrian vehicular conflicts occurring at major crosswalks throughout the Lark Street corridor. There have been many occasions where vehicles have almost hit me if I've been walking through crosswalks, and these push-button enabled pedestrian signals, commonly called beg buttons, do not provide safe access to a complete street approach, which it should achieve. In my written comments, I provide additional detail on the list of impacts experienced by pedestrians encountering crosswalks that have recently been changed to these push-type pedestrian signals. First, there is an inconsistent use of how these crosswalks are handled in areas with high pedestrian volume throughout the city. And secondly, this drives pedestrians to jaywalk instead of waiting for another 2 cycles to cross the intersection safely. Unfortunately, we see the disastrous results of too many cases with pedestrians being gravely injured or killed. We know these areas in the city all too well, and we should take meaningful action to abate this conflict between vehicles and pedestrians. In short, we support this common sense change to city code and hope that existing intersections will have changes made to prioritize pedestrian safety. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Kate.
Hello, Kate. Are you there?
Hi, I am here. Sorry, I was dropped into the meeting. Hi, my name is Kate Pocchini. I live at 544 Madison Avenue in Albany. I'm speaking today in support of Resolution 152222R. So probably a lot of what I wanted to say today has already been said, so I'm just going to share an anecdote from my walk to work this morning, which I feel illustrates my frustration with the beg buttons in the city of Albany. So I walk to work every morning. One of the intersections that I encounter every morning is the intersection of Washington Avenue, right by the Capitol. So this morning, as I was approaching the intersection, as I reached it, the light was turning red. All the cars stopped at the red light. And normally, if this was an intersection with the type of crossing that's proposed in this resolution, I would have been given the pedestrian light. I would have been able to cross right away. But this wasn't. There's a beg button at this intersection, so I had to press the button to cross the street, and it was a couple of seconds too late. So I ended up having to wait for one signal to pass, then a second signal to pass, and then finally a third signal to pass before I would get the pedestrian light. And so I decided to time it this morning because I knew I was talking today. And I ended up waiting there for 3 minutes, waiting for the light to change. And in the end, after that 3-minute wait, the light didn't even give me the pedestrian light. So I had to cross without a pedestrian light. And I see stuff like this happening all the time at the intersections around town. People will hit the beg button, they'll wait a little while, it'll take forever for the light to change, and then they'll kind of just give up and cross the street, even when it's not safe. And it's worth noting that when I was walking home from work today, I crossed an intersection where there was a pedestrian light, and I crossed with the right of way, and a car swerved into the intersection and almost hit me. So you're not even safe when you have the right of way. For that reason, the city should also be considering leading pedestrian signals at all of these intersections, because those give pedestrians a head start in the intersection, so you don't get hit by a car. So the minimum that I'm asking from the city here is that my safety as a pedestrian is prioritized above the convenience of people in cars, which I think is a pretty minor ask. I don't think that those things are equal. And so I think that this resolution gives us what we need, which is assurance that this problem is going to be improved over time. And one of the things that I really like about this resolution is the method that the resolution proposes for making these changes. At every time that you do maintenance on an intersection, that you add these improvements. I think that this is the way that we should be doing our pedestrian and our cycling improvements, safety improvements moving forward. Every time you're doing maintenance, every time you've got a shovel in the ground, you should be adding these safety improvements to the final design, so that it's not a big deal. It's just baked into the way that you do these maintenance projects. And so I think this resolution is a step in the right direction, and I encourage the council to support this resolution and not let Albany's potential as a walkable city go to waste. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
So we have no more in-person comments, but we do have written comments.
Okay.
So your permission, Ethan and I will alternate reading the comments tonight, and I'll start with Kelly Moore. I asked that it be read aloud at the Common Council meeting on February 24th, and also to all Common Council members. My name is Kelly Moore, and I live at 332 State Street. I encourage the council to pass resolution numbered 152222R. I walk in the city of Albany every day as a means of transportation for leisure and exercise. I do not own a car and often find myself at intersections that prioritize cars and not the people of the city of Albany. When people are required to push a button to cross the street, we are making the city inaccessible to pedestrians and people with disabilities. Buttons are often surrounded by mounds of snow and ice pushed on the sidewalk by plows, and people with visual impairments may struggle to find these crossing buttons and will be stuck without a way to cross the road. This is deeply counterproductive in a city attempting to revitalize its downtown core. Albany's pedestrian signals should activate whenever the vehicle signals activate. This ultra low cost policy change would go a long way to promote walkability in Albany, making streets safer for pedestrians and motorists alike. As downtown Albany continues to welcome new apartment units in the next several years, we must be prepared for an increase in the number of pedestrians. The city has rightfully promoted its walkable downtown and transit-friendly outer corridors as key to its low-carbon, sustainable future. It is critically important that Albany protect all of its road users by bidding farewell to beg buttons. Doing so will benefit pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers alike.
So I will read Dustin Moore, 332 State Street, Albany, New York, 122110. I would like this comment read aloud and sent to all members of the Common Council. I am in support of Resolution 152222R as a part of the City of Albany's effort to improve walkability. My wife and I walk our dog to and from Washington Park every day, including crossing multiple intersections that include pedestrian push button installations. We often feel unsafe when walking with our dog that vehicles will not obey pedestrian right-of-way and crosswalks as it is, and pedestrians deserve more empowerment in our city. We also do not own a vehicle and find navigating to bus stops such as Lark Street, Washington Ave, and Lark Street in front of the library and to the grocery store in our neighborhood to be made more challenging by pedestrian push buttons as opposed to automatic pedestrian signals.
Thank you.
Next comment is from Barbara Nazarwicz of 150 J Street. I ask that this comment be read to the Common Council at their meeting on February 24th and also sent to all council members. I am a frequent pedestrian of the City of Albany and support the effort to give pedestrians a walk signal at every light, cycle at all traffic signals, rather than requiring pedestrians to press a button to trigger a walk signal. Please, City Council, support work to automate pedestrian lights so that City of Albany residents can cross safely.
I'll be reading for Yuri Morgan. My name is Yuri Morgan and I live at 49 Dove Street. I encourage the council to pass resolution 152222R. Walking is perhaps the best way to experience Albany's historic beauty and charm, in addition to being carbon neutral and free. But at an increasing number of city intersections, pedestrians are given short shrift by being required to press a button to beg for a pedestrian signal, even if the signal is already changing for cars. As a result, pedestrians are forced to wait for several minutes at every corner when the buttons are working or not blocked by snow and ice. Beg buttons are designed to prioritize car traffic. This is deeply counterproductive in a city attempting to revitalize its downtown core. Albany's pedestrian signals should activate whenever the vehicle signals activate. This ultra low cost policy change would go a long way to promote walkability in Albany, making streets safer for pedestrians and motorists alike. As downtown Albany stands to welcome new apartment units in the next several years, we must be prepared for an increase in the number of pedestrians. The city has rightfully promoted its walkable downtown and transit-friendly outer corridors as key to its low carbon sustainable future. It is critically important that Albany protects all of its road users by bidding farewell to beg buttons. Doing so will benefit pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers alike. Thank you.
Next comment is from Abigail Butler of 102 Dove Street. I encourage the council to pass resolution number 152222. Walkability is something I consider to be extremely important to myself and my community. Just today, I saw the aftermath of a car accident while I was running alongside Washington Park, which only increased my concern about my safety when crossing streets in and around my neighborhood. Improving walkability and giving more priority to pedestrians would increase quality of life and equality for the city rather than only focusing on drivers. Pedestrians deserve to feel safe moving throughout their community just as much as drivers do. Increasing walkability could also encourage more eco-friendly attitudes and accessibility to public transport, which would both provide environmental benefits.
So Brandon Moore, 401 Madison Ave. I am in support of Resolution 152222R. I walk every day and have to be overly cautious because people do not pay attention. Seems like a huge quality of life improvement to make walking safer and easier.
Jeff Crumpton did submit a letter which has been shared with all the council members for your review regarding 152222R, as well as come and speak before the council tonight. So I'm going to skip the letter because I know everyone has received it. And Ethan, you have the next one.
Okay, so I have Jackie Gonzalez. She sent us a letter. Her information is 111 Lancaster Street, Albany, New York, 122110, and I'll read the letter. So, dear council, common council members, Walkable Albany supports Council Member Romero's resolution number 152222R, recognizing the importance of walkability throughout the city and calling on the Albany Police Department's Traffic Safety Division to adopt a policy ensuring that pedestrians' signals are automatically included whenever traffic signals are changed, upgraded, or installed, giving people who travel on foot a walk signal at every light cycle in dense neighborhoods, just as automobiles receive a green light at every light cycle, promotes a safe and walkable environment in our city. Promoting a walkable environment is good for safety and accessibility of our residents, especially those who take longer to cross the street, like children, elderly people, people in wheelchairs, and others with mobility issues, small businesses, since many of the businesses are in our densest neighborhoods are locally owned and rely primarily on foot traffic, lowering our greenhouse gas emissions by making it safe to walk, thus leading to more trips taken by foot instead of motor vehicle, making walking feel safer and more pleasurable in Albany ultimately leads to Albany being a place to live in rather than just to commute into. Which lowers transportation emissions in our city and on the interstates that run through our city. Promoting walkability is therefore essential as the city of Albany prepares to comply with the mandated emissions targets that will come out of the New York State Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act rulemaking process. Minimizing localized air pollution by encouraging trips by non-motorized vehicles. The city of Albany is uniquely positioned to be a city that people flock to for its walkability. Unlike many cities in the United States, the heart of Albany consists of infrastructure designed before the advent of automobiles. Its dense neighborhoods enable people to get from home to work, school, and other destinations without requiring the use of a car. Design changes that prioritize the safety of people traveling on foot over those traveling in motor vehicles will enhance Albany's inherent infrastructural advantage. Prioritizing the convenience of drivers, on the other hand, safeguards a continuation of the car-centric planning that led to developments like the Empire State Plaza and 787, which have for decades made it easy for people to live outside the city. This resolution aligns with the Common Council's equity agenda. People who die in pedestrian crashes in this country are overwhelmingly non-white, poor, disabled, or elderly, or all of the above. An estimated 25% of Albany households do not access to a car, and around 22% of Albany residents live with wages below the poverty line. By prioritizing the convenience of motor vehicle drivers over pedestrian safety, the city's traffic engineering division is turning a blind eye to the safety of our poorest and most vulnerable citizens. Giving pedestrians a walk sign at every light cycle is one small virtually cost-free way to make Albany more equitable, safer, green, and more economically bustling. Why would we pass up this opportunity? Please make Albany streets safer for all users and not just more convenient for those who happen to be in cars. Sincerely, Walkable Albany. And Andrew Neidhart, founder, the president, Jackie Gonzalez, vice president, Catherine Dickert, board member, chair, planning and zoning committee, Stephen Hull, board member, chair, planning and zoning committee, Garrett Musto, board member, chair, web outreach, Mackenzie Pope, board member, chair, pedestrian safety committee. That is it.
Thank you.
We have additional comments. Do we still have time, Mr. President?
Yes, we do.
Next comment is from Tiffany Meddy, 8 Glendale Ave. My name is Tiffany Meddy and I live at 8 Glendale Ave. I encourage the council to pass resolution number 152222R. I primarily make my way around the city on foot. I choose to do so because it is good exercise, allows me to interact with my neighbors throughout the city, is free and carbon neutral, and provides daily opportunity for local businesses to draw me in. But at an increasing number of city intersections, pedestrians are given short shrift by being required to press a button to beg for a pedestrian signal, even if the signal is already changing for cars. Personally, there have been many times I have arrived at an intersection just after the mysterious beg period, in which a working beg button or one that happens to not be blocked by snow/ice will accept my plea to make my way legally and more safely across the street. This means me and other pedestrians are forced to wait for several minutes at every corner, even if there isn't any car traffic, because drivers do not have to beg for a light to change. Beg buttons are designed to prioritize car traffic. This is deeply counterproductive in a city attempting to revitalize its downtown core. It is also a massive oversight for a city claiming to address the climate crisis to continue prioritizing car traffic over active transportation such as walking. If our city is serious about creating a sustainable, healthy city, we need to promote walkability, bikeability, and busability. A great small step and ultra low cost with meaningful potential return on investment to boot would be to have pedestrian signals activate automatically. This also would mean that the city would no longer have to weigh concerns about snow piles making beg buttons inaccessible to disabled pedestrians. As Albany continues to welcome new apartment units in the next several years, we must be prepared for an increase in the number of pedestrians. The city has rightfully promoted its walkable downtown and transit-friendly outer corridors as key to its low-carbon sustainable future. No road user should be reduced to an afterthought when it comes to street safety. It is critically important that Albany protect all our road users by bidding farewell to beg buttons.
Thank you. And Mr. Kimbrough, we've reached our 30-minute mark for public comment. How many? You'd have to extend the period.
We have 5 more.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Make the motion to extend public comment another 30 minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Continue on.
So this is from Caitlin Caldwell, 22 Winthrop Ave. My name is Caitlin Caldwell and I live at 22 Winthrop Ave, Albany, New York, 12203. I encourage the council to pass resolution number 152222R. Walking is perhaps the best way to experience Albany's historic beauty and charm. Wait, did I? No, sorry. In addition to being carbon neutral and free, but at an increasing number of city intersections, pedestrians are given short shrift by being required to press a button for a pedestrian signal, even if the signal is already changing for cars. As a result, pedestrians are forced to wait for several minutes at every corner when the buttons are working or not blocked by snow and ice. Beg buttons are designed to prioritize car traffic. I feel this pain when I take my children for walks. We love getting outside and walking around our city, but it feels like the city does not love us back when trying to cross roads. I feel the beg buttons are especially harmful to families. The last thing a parent should be worrying about when taking their children out is that the crosswalks won't keep them safe. After living in other cities that do not have bag buttons, I could not believe that Albany seems stuck in a past that does not promote walking by putting such a silly burden on its pedestrians. Albany's pedestrian signals should activate whenever the vehicle signals activate. This ultra low cost policy change would go a long way to promote walkability in Albany, making streets safer for pedestrians and motorists alike. As downtown Albany continues to welcome new apartment units in the next several years, we must be prepared for an increase in the number of pedestrians. The city has rightfully promoted its walkable downtown and transit-friendly outer corridors as key to its low carbon sustainable future. It is critically important that Albany protect all of its road users by bidding farewell to bag buttons. Doing so will benefit pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers alike.
Next up, Andrew McMahon, 9 Dana Ave. I walk around Albany almost every day. In fact, moving to Albany has made me healthier in that being here in a city with sidewalks has made walking more accessible than living in a suburban rural area with no pedestrian infrastructure, something I'm very grateful for. That being said, I pretty much stress about where to cross. Madison, every day I walk, this being one of many problem areas, just the one I interact with most. I prioritize my walk to points where it's easiest and least amount of traffic, but I think it's pretty bogus to have to do that. I don't worry for myself so much as my community members who don't have the time to ponder the best route while walking to jobs, appointments, meetings, getting groceries, etc. Please begin removing these bag buttons and start to place a higher priority on the pedestrians of the city.
So this is Richard Pearson Strain, 69A Rose. I'm reaching out in support of removing the city's bag buttons as tools to deny pedestrians access to our intersections. Their continued use by the city penalizes those who desire to walk or are required to walk/bus around Albany. Albany has come a long way in walkability, but bag buttons continue to be a thorn in the side, especially in the winter, where accessing them is impossible, if not dangerous, forcing pedestrians to illegally cross in many instances. When I try to hype up patronage to the city of Albany's fine businesses with my peers, it isn't parking that the city has that they cite as an issue, but how unsafe they feel walking around to recreate, given our intersections are built to appease the driver and not the walker, compounded in the winter with poor snow management. Some intersections require you to beg while others don't. Some require you to beg, yet when you do it, doesn't work, leaving you looking over your shoulder, contemplating how much you are allowed to break the law to cross. And in the winter, some require you to climb a mountain of snow and immediately launch into some cryptic yoga move in order to press the button. No wonder folks don't want to come to our neighborhoods to recreate with all this confusion. We have great bones, but there is a lot of low hanging that we can tackle to improve walkability. The elimination of bag buttons is one such fruit we should have been eating a long time ago.
Next is from Erica Schneider, 442 Morris Street. I support the resolution that pedestrian signals be automatically included whenever traffic signals are changed, upgraded, or installed. Bag buttons increase wait times for pedestrians and cause confusion between pedestrians and motorists. In the winter, they can be hard to reach because of snow and ice and make it so that the light will never change for the pedestrian to cross. It is so frustrating as a pedestrian to be in this situation and makes for unsafe conditions. In urban areas with lots of foot traffic, pedestrian lights should be automated so that pedestrians can cross safely.
All right, last one. So this is from Jason DeNovi. Dear Common Council members, I am writing to advocate for the banning of pedestrian signal beg buttons. I have chosen to live in Center Square because I prioritize walkability. Generally speaking, I am thrilled to be able to walk to local businesses, parks, and my child's daycare. My spouse is able to walk to work. However, beg buttons on pedestrian signals detract from walkability from a safety perspective. I have been nearly struck in crosswalks on multiple occasions by vehicles when I have the right of way. On one occasion, I actually had to jump backwards while carrying my 2-year-old across the street in a crosswalk in order to avoid being run over by a turning vehicle. It scares the hell out of me to think about what would have happened to my child if I haven't been so hyper vigilant. These accidents happen because some drivers think they do not have to yield to pedestrians when there is no walk signal lit. I was a claims adjuster for several years, specializing in auto injury claims. A number of these involved pedestrians in crosswalks who were struck by turning vehicles. I've conducted interviews of many drivers who thought that because the light was green and the pedestrian signal does not say walk, that they do not need to yield to pedestrians who are crossing in the same direction of travel. State law does require the vehicle to yield to pedestrians in the crosswalk if both are traveling in the same direction prior to the vehicle turning into the crosswalk. This is independent of the pedestrian signal. The best way to avoid these preventable accidents is to have pedestrian signals which are synced with traffic lights to show the walk signal whenever there is a solid green light in the same direction of travel. This avoids ambiguity and confusion for drivers when it comes to their duty to yield right of way. Please ban pedestrian beg buttons and allow for current pedestrian signal devices to be synced with traffic controls so our streets will be safer. Thank you, Jason DeNovi.
Thank you. And that will conclude tonight's public comment period. And we'll move on to the next item on our agenda. Approval of minutes from recent meetings. Mr. Kimbrough.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer our meeting minutes from our February 7th of 2022 meeting for passage.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, people. Approval minutes passed. Now moving on to considerations of our local laws, starting with Mr. Anani.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, Jack is so silly.
Oh,
Thank
Jack
you,
Mr. Or Nani? Oh.
thank you, Mr. President. I noticed local law B and ask for its introduction and passage on a. Ask for its introduction.
I was going to say pass. We can't pass local law.
No, introduction. Sorry.
Thank you, sir. Can the clerk please read the local law?
A local law amending section 42-384, power and duties of part 39, Commission on Municipal Internet Services of chapter 42, departments and commissions, to extend the time within which the commission must submit its preliminary report.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough.
Thank you, sir. There'll be a referral to the planning committee.
Okay, thank you. Continuing on with introduction of local laws, Mr. Johnson.
I noticed local law C and ask for its introduction.
Thank you, sir. Can the clerk please read the local law?
A local law amending chapter 42, departments and commissions of the Code of the City of Albany in relation to creating a public safety commission.
Thank you. Mr. Kimbrough.
Thank you, Mr. President. We referral to the Council's Public Safety Committee.
Thank you. And that concludes, I think we have one local law, Mr. Kimbrough, to be held, correct?
That's correct. The rest are held.
Thank you, sir. Now, standing committees, reports of standing committees. We have none. Mr. Kimbrough.
Yes, the council operations met twice in the last few weeks to interview candidates for the reapportionment commission. We had some good candidates, good meetings, and we we haven't announced our selections yet, but we came up with a good diverse group of members. So we'll be putting that out soon.
Thank you. Mr. Hoey.
Yes, the Public Safety Committee met on February 10th from 12 o'clock in the afternoon to 1. We talked to the union heads of the fire department and the union head of the PBA. We also had the police person training the new recruits come in and talk about the process. And we also had the neighborhood engagement unit officer in charge talk about the neighborhood engagement unit.
Thank you. Mr. Ballerin.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Planning, Land Use, and Economic Development Committee will be meeting on March 9th. We'll be taking on the renewal of Capitalized Albany in the IDA, as well as the affordable housing, inclusionary housing aspect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ballerin. Seeing no other reports of any standing committees, we'll move on to consideration of ordinances. Mr. Anani.
Thank you, Mr. President. I noticed ordinance 522.22 and ask for its introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Anani. Can the clerk please read the ordinance?
An ordinance amending chapter 375, which is a unified sustainable development ordinance of the code of the city of Albany in relation to the regulation of sidewalk and outdoor cafe.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough.
You're muted.
Thank you, Mr. President. We refer to the Planning Council.
Thank you. Continue on with ordinances introduced. Mr. Ballerin.
I don't have that number in front of me. Can you give me that, please?
62222.
62222. Thank you. I asked to introduce ordinance 62222.
Thank you for introduction. Can the clerk please read the ordinance?
An ordinance amending section 359-75, permit required hours of chapter 359, vehicles and traffic of the code of the city of Albany in relation to prohibiting non-permitted vehicles from parking in each residential parking permit zone for more than 2 consecutive hours.
Thank you. Mr. Kimbrough.
Thank you, Mr. President. There'll be referral to the Council's Law Committee.
Okay, and that concludes the introduction of ordinances. Moving on to resolutions introduced. Ms. Romero.
Thank you, Mr. President. I noticed resolution number 152222R for introduction and ask for its passage on a roll call vote.
Thank you, Ms. Romero. Can the clerk please read the resolution?
A resolution of the Common Council of the City of Albany recognizing the importance of walkability throughout the city and calling on the Albany Police Department's Traffic Safety Division to adopt a policy ensuring that pedestrian signals are automatically included whenever traffic signals are changed, upgraded, or installed.
Thank you. Any discussion on this resolution, Ms. Romero?
Yeah, thank you. So much has been said. And thank you everyone for your patience. And as public servants, I know everyone here is probably also so excited and happy to see people get involved like this and to speak out about something that matters. So it's just so lovely to see that. And I mean, there's nothing more that I can really say other than what's already been said. And I hope that this is just the first step in creating a binding ordinance or local law that we can actually more substantively address this issue. And I would hope that we can do that together and that everyone can be involved in that conversation because it's a worthwhile one. So I'm excited and I hope that everyone can also support this.
Thank you. Mr. Hoey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I will be supporting this resolution and I'll be asked to be a co-sponsor for it. I want to take this opportunity though. I had to sit through quite a bit of time listening to people talking about walkability of the city and knowing that there's 3 wards in this city that don't have adequate sidewalks. and some of the wards have even less than adequate. And it's just it's frustrating because this is my 5th year talking about this, and when I have fellow council members saying, well, we heard the people in your area don't want sidewalks. This is important for the city, that this is a walkable city, and we're one city. It's not just the downtown. I keep hearing, let's revitalize downtown. We're one city, we're one Albany. What affects downtown affects the whole city. What affects uptown affects the whole city. And I want the people, in our city to realize that together we can make Albany the greatest city ever. And we need to work together. And it's not one person gets more than the other. It's supposed to be equity across the board on everything. So I will be supporting this, and I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoey. Mr. Ballard.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I also will be supporting this bill. And I think it does definitely benefit those who are walking, but it also benefits those who are driving. If you've ever been stuck in one of those long lights where it seems like it goes on forever and ever. I was stuck in one the other day thinking about this resolution, and it was so bad that after a minute and a half, I literally just jumped out of my car and pushed the button. I might have broken some traffic laws there, but it turned green. It turned green right away. So I think this benefits. It just makes us move in a better direction, and it benefits both people who are driving and people who are trying to walk in our city. So thank you for bringing this forward. I'm glad it was brought back, and I look forward to voting and supporting this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Oh, Mr. Anani.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I just want to thank Councilmember Romero for all her hard work and making sure that we have public participation and advocacy, rallying and lobbying for such an important issue. When you think about walkability and the city of Albany, the 2030 plan, majority of the people that live in the city want a walkable city. They want to be able to walk to the grocery store, walk to the CVS, want to use their cars less. And I think that this is one big step in going towards that direction. As was mentioned earlier, you think about, the winter months when the bag buttons are frozen. What do you do during that time? And I think that it's so important that Traffic and Safety Commissioner really listen to the voices of the residents. I know that some people think that they only work for the mayor, but it's important that we all work for the council. You also work for residents, and majority of residents in our city want these bag buttons gone. They want to make sure that the city is walkable. And I want to thank Councilmember Member for her advocacy and reintroducing this and bringing this back to the agenda, to the forefront. And I hope that the administration is listening. I hope Traffic and Safety is listening to all the comments. And I look forward to working with the councilwoman to make this more permanent. So keep up the advocacy and great job.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, can the clerk please call the roll?
Anani. I'm sorry, Adams.
Yes, co-sponsor.
Anani.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Valerie.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Clark.
Yes, co-sponsor.
Farrell. Flynn.
Yes, co-sponsor.
Frederick.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Hoey.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Johnson.
Yes.
Keegan.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Kimbrough.
Yes, co-sponsor.
Romero.
Yes.
Zamer.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
12 in the affirmative.
Resolution passes. Continue on the resolutions introduced. Ms. Fredericks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I notice resolution 162222R and ask for its passage by roll call vote.
Thank you. Can the clerk please read the resolution?
A resolution of the Common Council directing the Commissioner of the Department of Assessment and Taxation of the City of Albany to grant property tax exemptions to seniors who received such exemption in 2021 without the need to file the normal annual renewal notification.
Any discussion on this resolution? Seeing none, can a clerk please call the roll?
Adams,
Yes, co-sponsor.
Anani,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Valorant,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Clark,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Frederick,
Yes.
Hoey,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Johnson,
Yes.
Keegan,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Kimbrough,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Romero,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Zamer,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
12 in the affirmative.
Thank you. Resolution passes. Continue on the introduction of resolutions, Mr. Nani.
Thank you, Mr. President. I notice resolution 1822-22R and ask for its passage on roll call vote.
No, this one,
17.
1722.
Sorry.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. President. I notice resolution 1722-22R and ask for its introduction.
Thank you. Can the clerk please read the resolution?
A resolution of the Common Council urging passage of all 7 bills of the Crash Victim Rights and Safety Act in the New York State Legislature.
Thank you. And that resolution will be a hold. Now, Mr. Nani, continuing on with resolutions introduced.
Thank you, Mr. President. I notice resolution 1822-22R and ask for its introduction and passage on a roll call thereon.
Thank you, sir. Can the clerk please read the resolution?
A resolution of the Common Council supporting universal childcare.
Discussion on this resolution, Mr. Nani.
Thank you, Mr. President. All over the news, we're hearing about returning people back to their jobs in person, having people back to their daily lives, so they could support the downtown communities, retails. Many think it's easy, but quite frankly, it is not. If you ask any parent with a young child, Mr. President, it's not enough to return to normal because normal was not acceptable in the first place. And the state and the council and many of us, we need to implement policies that help working people. And one of those policies is universal childcare. If we want a more productive society, if we want to achieve full employment, if we want people to go back into their offices and other places of employment, New York must pass universal childcare. Parents need to know that their kids are safe when they're working. We are in New York and we have the resources thanks to the federal government with the American Rescue Funds, but also New York State have the resources now to get this done. We don't need to wait for the federal government to act. Time is of the essence. So for the sake of working parents in New York, we have to make sure that this get done this year. I want to thank all the advocates, particularly Senator Jabari, who reached out as relates to having this introduced on the local level. And I hope that other municipalities will introduce similar resolution because quite frankly, childcare is a human right and we have to fight for all of our working families. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this resolution? Ms. Keegan, sorry. Ms. Keegan.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Anane, for bringing the resolution to the Common Council. I also want to add and include that in addition to ensuring that everyone has access to quality, affordable childcare, we also need to address the issue of not having sufficient childcare slots to accommodate the needs of the number of children in New York State and across the country. And in addition to that, childcare is not just something that is needed Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. It is something that is needed in evenings, overnights, weekends in order to fully support our workforce. And in many of these discussions, one of the things that I have found concerning and quite lacking is also the component around how that wraparound childcare has the ability to spur an economic development and entrepreneurship in our communities through licensed family-based childcare, which was absolutely decimated during this pandemic. So I just wanted to include those comments as we're discussing this resolution, because it's not just about creating universal childcare, it's also about building the necessary infrastructure to support all of our workforce, including those folks who are working non-traditional jobs and non-traditional hours. Thank you. That's it.
Ballerin, sorry, Mr. Ballerin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I support this, and I thank you, Councilman Anani, for bringing this resolution forward. I think it's important that we realize for even those parents who are working remotely or have the ability to work remotely, you still need childcare. For any parent that has tried to do both roles, you know that you can't. It's very difficult to do it, and something it lacks, either the skill development that you're trying to give your child and the attention you're trying to give your child, or the work that you need to get done that you're trying to give. And many times what you do is you work long hours to get the work done. And a lot of people who have gone through this the last 2 years know that, but that's not sustainable. So we want to make sure, whether you're working remote, whether you're working in person, whether you're working 9 to 5 or off hours, you have the ability to have good, reliable, affordable childcare. If you ask young people why they're not having kids, one of the most critical things that they say is they're too expensive. And what is the most expensive part of having a child is your first upfront expenses, which is childcare. I mean, for me, it's more than one of my mortgages. So it's expensive. It's expensive. And I know a lot of people can't afford that. And a lot of people have to quit their jobs and hold back their careers to be able to have a child. So that's not good for our country. It's not good for our city. Not just nationally, but internationally, the birth rate is falling. There are some benefits to that, but there's a lot of pain that's going to come for that, because with the birth rate falling, there's going to be a population shortage for work. We still need, people to be able to do what we need done. We need teachers, we need doctors, we need people to work, in construction. We still need people to get things done and to build our country. So how are you going to motivate young people to get over that fear of, we can't afford this? Is give them the assurance that there's going to be affordable, safe, adequate childcare for their kids, and that will ease some of the concerns that a lot of young people are having when it comes to whether they should start a family or not. So thank you, Mr. Anani, for moving this forward, and I look forward to supporting it.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, can the clerk please call the roll?
Adams.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Anani.
Yes. Yes.
Ballerin.
Yes, please co-sponsor.
Clark.
Yes, co-sponsor.
Flynn.
Yes, co-sponsor.
Frederick.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Hoey.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Johnson.
Yes.
Keegan.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Kimbrough,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Romero,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Zamer,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
12 in the affirmative.
Resolution passes. We have no other resolution introduced. Mr. Kimbrough? Hold on.
Okay, rest of the resolutions are held.
Thank you. And many miscellaneous. Ms. Romero?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm sure many of us have seen the Times Union article about the Albany Police Department report on the covering of their badges from April 22nd. And my understanding is that the report is complete, and I'm just wondering if the council will get a copy of that, the Public Safety Committee will get a copy of that. And if we don't, what exactly are the measures that are in place in order to request that, whether informally or formally?
Thank you, Ms. Morrell. I believe the Public Safety Chair has reached out already, I believe so.
I haven't. I could. I wasn't sure what to do. So should I reach out, Corey, to the chief?
And ask for the report.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Ms. Romero?
As a follow-up as well, I'm curious if there were any formal reports done about the use of tear gas from like May and June of last year as well. And if we could not only view that report and then kind of use it as we move forward to eventually take up the tear gas, some may say tear gas ban, some may say tear gas control or use, or modifying its use. Whatever we choose to do going forward, I think we should view that report before we do something. So I'm hoping that we see that as well, since it's coming up on many months now.
Yep. Thank you, Ms. Romero. So Mr. Johnson's hand. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would ask my colleagues of schools and neighborhoods in the lower wards, if they can encourage their constituents to participate in the middle school survey. I think that the input is needed and necessary so that the district can make decisions that can benefit the whole city. I hear the word equity thrown out sometimes, and it's offensive, to me, because it's, we sit through these meetings and a lot of the discussions are on things that are important to people, and I'm not going to question that. But we just had a meeting and nobody talked about the gun violence that we're surrounded with. Every day that we wake up, we're constantly hearing that police are pulling over people and finding guns, and we don't have these conversations. So when the word equity is used and it's not illustrated all the time, it's just a word, and I just feel a need to speak about that, because we got a lot of issues that are bothering this whole city, and it just seems like they go ignored by the council unless something drastic happens. And I'm just hoping that we can support all of the things that are going on in the city. That would be a meaningful meeting that I enjoy. I'm willing to support other issues and other areas and other interests, but I just think that sometimes we forget about parts of Albany. So I'm asking if people can encourage their constituents to fill out that survey so that people's thoughts and feelings can be shared and can be considered, and also to support the people that are sitting at the table that are empowered with making difficult decisions that they need to be supported on. So I would ask if people can figure out how to pass that message along. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Keegan.
Thank you. Many of you may have seen recently in the press or heard that the county legislature is taking up the issue of the pending evictions at Albany Housing Authority. And I just wanted to let you all know that they have been very responsive to me in any questions that I have asked of them. They sat down and met with me today to kind of go over all of the various different programs and what the greater picture looks like for their eviction process. And I would encourage all of you to reach out to them directly, but also to pay very close attention to any pending legislation that impacts HUD, because Albany Housing Authority is not the only public housing entity in the United States right now who is in a bind now that the eviction moratorium has been lifted. And they can finally kind of disclose what's been going on for the last 2 years. So anyway, if anybody wants to know some more details on that, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to share the information that I received from them with all of you.
Thank you. Mr. Hoey.
Yeah, and Councilmember Johnson mentioned stuff that made me think all of a sudden I want to bring up some stuff in miscellaneous. Just to let him know, my wife is the president of PTA up at Eagle Point, where her grandchild goes. And it's very contentious right now about the plan for the middle schools. But I just want to reassure you that there's a lot of discussion going on. Actually, they're having a meeting tonight about it. So there are people responding. Also, I wanted to bring up, we only have one high school. Well, we have there's actually 3, but there's one major high school is Albany High on Washington Ave. And, last week, right before school ended, I got a text from my son that there was a lockdown. There was a student and a hall monitor stabbed. To be honest with you, I didn't know what to do and I kind of freaked out, but I reached out to 2 fellow council members that I know have children in the school, and we were able to talk things through. It made me feel a lot better being able to relate to another parent. What do you do in this type of situation? My son had to go to the bathroom. He was stuck in a room. And it's just, these are the things you don't think about. What do you do during a lockdown? And how do we take care of our kids? And, they had a virtual day on Friday. This happened on Thursday. But, we're putting our kids through the COVID, and, when we have violence in schools and in our neighborhoods, it's a real problem. And believe me, I feel it, and it's close to home. And whatever we can do, we're going to do. We have to. There's no other choice. So thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Johnson.
Ms. Fredericks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to take a moment and thank Ethan and Danielle for all their efforts that went into the annual African American History Month celebration that was held yesterday. I thought it was really well done, and very much appreciate everything that you did. And just a follow-up question to that, will awardees receive a certificate in the mail?
Yeah.
Okay. Any sense of timing for that?
The hope was to get them out on Friday, but with the inclement weather looming, they'll probably go out next week.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And following up on the African American History Celebration, once again, great job by our staff, great job by our council members. We hope that one day in this history of this country, we will no longer need African American Month. We hope and we pray that the African American experience, from African American, from Black to Negro to colored, would be part of the history, storytelling of the history of America, as we do when we do European history study, when we do American history study, that the Afrocentric American experience is part of that history, the good and the bad, because that's only how we will begin to cut out how we feel and how we see one another, because history is important. And we all know that people without history is a people that is lost. And right now, as we see throughout the world, and right now we pray for our brothers and sisters in Ukraine what's going on in Ukraine, that history is important. Telling the true history is more important. So we hope that one day we will not just be relegated to a month, that it'll be African-American history told throughout the whole year. And so, but once again, thank the staff, thank the council members for your great picks of the individuals to be recognized. And as we wind down this month, please everyone be safe. Make sure, you know, the storm is coming. Make sure your constituents understand if we have to go to emergency parking system, that everyone moves their cars when appropriate. So just be safe and take care. Mr. Kimbrough.
Thank you, Mr. President. Motion to adjourn.
Gabriella had her hand up.
Sorry. I just have one last question in response to our
I can't see without my glasses.
That's okay. Thank you, Council President. So my just a direct question is, what is the procedure to obtain documents from departments, and is it a specific?
There's no procedure when you're an elected official. It's an ask. Right. What we have to do is, when they do not provide the information to elected officials,
okay,
what is the next recourse? But it's an ask. There's no procedure. You're an elected official. You were sworn in and you were voted by your constituency. So any documentation that goes through this city, any report, is an ask. There's no foiling. It's an ask.
Good to know. Thank you very much.
So Mr. Kimbrough has a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Have a good night, everybody. Stay safe.